Hello.
My name is Michael Raymond. I'm a software engineer for Oracle Corporation here in Orlando.
Uh, what is your current job title?
My job title is Senior Principal Applications Engineer.
How long have you been in this role?
In this role for about 3 years.
Oh,
Yeah.
congratulations. How did you land this position?
You'd have to go back about 20 years, but basically, a coworker of mine at my previous employer had come to Oracle, and Oracle was paying a recruitment bonus for
Right.
anybody who had to come, and she probably got 10 or 12 people to transfer. You know, the situation at my old company was they'd gone public, IPO, and
Yeah.
they essentially paid a lot of hired guns to make that IPO successful,
Yeah.
but they didn't pay any of the long-term employees to
Ah,
stay.
gotcha.
So lots of people made money, but not the people who built the company. So the people who built the company, most of which came to Oracle.
Yeah.
So I came with a group of people, but yeah. So that's how I got there. It was a good time to go. It was a good set of job skills that I wanted to learn. So that's pretty much why I came. But yeah.
Interesting. What do you enjoy? What do you enjoy most about your job?
Well, I gotta think about that. I really work with a really smart bunch of people, and I think that's part of it. Is that, I guess I've always had this situation where I've always worked with people who are
Right.
really, really good group, and so it's very interesting when you go to work. There are different political views and stuff. The other thing about Oracle is it's a really diverse place.
Yeah.
I'm probably in the minority. There's probably 25% white Caucasian, and there's a lot of Hispanics. We brought a whole Latin American support group up years ago, and so they're all there, and a lot of Indians, a lot of Pakistanis and Bangladeshis, and Chinese, and so it's very interesting from that standpoint, because
Yeah.
you just never know what
Yeah.
somebody's having some sort of culture week, and you just never
Yeah.
know what it's going to be, and you go to work and it's like, oh look, it's Diwali or something,
Yeah.
which it was this last week. So yeah,
That's pretty cool. Interesting to learning about different cultures and stuff.
it's in your generation it's
Yeah.
normal. In
Yeah,
mine,
yeah.
when I went to high school at Lake Brantley, and
Yeah, and
honestly it was all white,
Yeah.
Anglo-Saxon, Protestant, upper middle class. There was
Yeah.
no diversity.
No nothing. Yeah.
And so, I've watched Florida and Orlando change in that way, but I would say that the density of, again, I mentioned they're very smart people.
Yeah.
So it's not like, hey, this is the local guy picking broccoli, getting
Yeah.
off the truck. These are guys who are, master's degrees. They have as much experience as I do in the industry. They were consultants, making lots of money and doing
Right.
lots of things. And, now they work at Oracle. And so, it's kind of interesting that way, I guess. You never know what to expect. Every day is different.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
At least it's not boring,
Yeah, yeah.
So what do you think is the most challenging part of your job?
I didn't used to think it was this way, but I think it's dealing with the customers.
I can see that.
I'm in support, and I deal with customers almost every day. And Oracle, they a couple of years ago made a decision that they would let the customer dictate the severity of the issue, so our response times and stuff. And the customers basically go through and turn everything up to the top.
Yeah, so you get to the first.
So
help.
everybody's asking for everything to be as highly escalated as possible, which once everything is that way, there's no way
To
that the customer can differentiate.
Yeah, gotcha.
So that leaves it back up to us. But there are things about when we track their issues, how
Right.
those things respond. You get these notifications if it hasn't been touched in a couple of hours. Well, if they're all this way, then they all do that. So
Yeah.
every day, my computer's constantly, they've got this little utility that flashes
in Windows,
alerts.
right? That's like,
And
that's annoying.
So it's constantly going
Yeah.
flash, flash, flash. And I'm like, this is just making it stressful, because
Yeah.
I know all my issues need to be touched, but you're basically making, it's like,
Yeah. Every 2 seconds, you can't even solve all the issues.
Yeah.
So
So I would say that's hard. I like dealing with customers, but unfortunately, this brings out some characteristics in them that I don't appreciate.
yeah.
You'll have them going, well, according to our contract, your service, what do they call it? The service guidelines say that
Yeah.
you should call me back within the hour. And I'm like,
Oh, when
you know,
customers say that stuff, yeah,
and
it's
you're kind of
it's
like,
stupid.
well, what you're doing is trying to customize something. This isn't critical. I know it's critical to you, but it's not critical because it wasn't our software that caused it. So I'll help you, but I have some other things I have to do first.
Yeah,
So
okay.
yeah, there's a lot of that. But yeah.
So how do you think working in a group improved your like product or your like skill?
Group versus individual.
Yeah.
Okay. Personally, I am kind of a force multiplier in a group. So in a team, I'm the kind of guy that thinks of ideas and things that are beyond my own skill set, but things that will probably lead to resolution or will help to identify the issue. So I'm always kind of like, if you're seeking other opinions and trying to kind of bring in a collective of people to solve a problem. So for me, working in a group makes me much more effective, and it makes the group more effective. As an individual, in a bubble, it's strange because you know a lot, but you don't know everything, and the guy sitting next to you knows a slightly offset set of skills. So it may be the thing that he knows that you don't.
Yeah, that you
that's
need.
the solution. So you're always kind of like, I don't know. Hey, what do you think?
Yeah.
Hey, what do you think? So that really, I think that's really critical in the group mentality thing. Yeah.
I've experienced that too, like coding competitions where if you don't know an idea, or like you have an idea but you don't have a solution, you ask somebody else and they may have a.
Yeah.
It's.
You're like, I think this would work, but I don't know quite how to.
Yeah, how to do it.
Yeah. Well, how can I execute? I mean, this is the concept, but yeah. So that's true. As a software developer for a long time, I was basically an army of one because the U.S. development group that I was in had pretty much reduced down to the point where it was only me in the U.S. And it's really hard because you have to come up with a concept of how you're going to solve a problem, and you have to produce the solution. And if you don't, with the time zone offsets, because I'm working with a bunch of guys in India and Europe, if I don't, they're before me in the day. So if I start to think about it in the afternoon, it's too late to get any help. So I'm on my own, and I definitely spent a lot of time doing that, and it's much harder. You think on your feet a lot, you get good at it, but I think that the solutions are better when you have other people to fall back on.
Right.
Yeah.
So, how do you see your job changing in about 5 to 10 years? Probably a lot more, or a bigger company, I'd assume, more collaboration.
It's going to be different than you'd think. I think that question should be split into two ways. How does Oracle see my job changing in the next 5 years? And how do I see my job change? I'm involved in a project that we're trying to automate the support system to some degree. Now, Oracle would like to think that it's going to be like Skynet, and that it's going to, it's going to find, it'll take these, the customer will type in 5 symptoms and the thing will cross-reference them and weight them and figure out what the solution is. But the problem with their concept is that every couple of years, Oracle releases a new version of the product that I work in, and every time they do it, they change enough of the product architecturally that a lot of the previous knowledge doesn't apply anymore. And you have to really go through and figure out what knowledge to throw out, what notes and things to throw out, and what notes need to be updated. So every time we get anywhere near the objective of automated solutions, they update the system.
Yeah, so it's like pointless.
Throws it all out. So we're constantly changing that way. So Oracle would like to get to a point where I produce content, and that there is a system that links that content to, between symptoms and provides that to the customer. How do I see my job changing? Well, as long as Oracle keeps breaking the software that way, I think I'll keep doing the same thing. It's like being on a treadmill, that I'll be doing the same thing in 5 years that I was doing today, just on a different version of the software. Again, in support, it's obvious that the key is to create some sort of very intelligent solution providing database, but in practice, it's really, really hard to do. So we're struggling with this. It's really, I literally just had meetings on this on Friday, and my boss and I were laughing about it because when we take like 2 steps forward, like our tool set that we're using is really a cobbled together thing, and it has all kinds of little quirks and flaws in it. So you go 2 steps forward, and then it comes 1 step back because
Right.
something didn't work right. So I wrote a script-based tool to do some analysis on a file. It's a very simple proof of concept that I wanted to make sure that my idea would work and that the technology would work, and it was, solid enough that it wouldn't fail if the file didn't match the format, whatever. And in the end, it's been 2 or 3 months, and we haven't been able to get it into production. And the reasons that we haven't gotten it into production are just about anything you could possibly imagine, but I could never have conceived of when I started it.
Yeah.
Because my boss is like, "Isn't that in production yet?" I'm like, "No." And he's like, "Why not?" And I'm like, "Well, the latest thing was that the file that we promoted to production got modified somewhere in between, and nobody is admitting that they modified the file, but the change broke it. So
Right.
now we had to troubleshoot it to figure out why it wouldn't work, and then we figured it out, but our process has flaws in it, and
Yeah.
the process has damaged the file in some way, and nobody is being really clear about
Yeah.
who exactly.
Taking
You know.
responsibility.
Yeah, the one guy who administers the promotion process,
Mm-hmm.
I asked him, I said, "Look, was it me? Did I make a typo?" And he
Yeah.
goes, "No, because the first test environment we went through worked fine, and the second one it broke." And he goes, and I diffed the files, and when I diffed them, I realized a bracket was missing on the second one. One bracket, one
Yeah,
character
yeah.
somewhere in the middle of this file.
I feel you.
How could that go?
I know.
It was supposed to be an automated process. So clearly this invalidates the automated process. It invalidates the review process. It invalidates the testing process. This is all for a little, couple 100-line script. I
Yeah.
mean, come on. How can I make anything more complicated if you can't get that online?
Yeah.
Anyway, so, what was the question again? How did I see
Yeah. How
things
do you
change?
see your job changing in 5 to 10 years?
I don't see it changing a lot. I don't think. I think Oracle has a dream that it will become much more automated, and I'll become more
Yeah.
content centric. But I think that the reality is that the actual underlying content will change so much between releases that we'll never really get
Yeah.
a lot of forward progress. I guess that's okay if you just want to
Yeah.
last it out to retirement, right?
Yeah. So I was thinking, because Microsoft, they have that automated sort of thing
Yeah.
where if you type in symptoms, it doesn't really work when new updates come because new problems come along with it. So
Yep.
it's kind of,
We're in the same boat.
Yeah,
it's
so it's
exactly
kinda
like that.
stupid.
Same kind of
So-
content. I mean, and then the funny thing about it is that they go, well, okay, so this content is only effective for Microsoft Windows
Right.
7, right? And you're on Windows 10. But what I find is that if you can link the symptom, not the specific symptom, in other words,
Yeah.
like not version specific symptoms, but the symptom, the error message, and the solution, what happens is sometimes you come back to the same symptom and the same problem in a later release.
right.
I do see that enough. I just saw it the other day on something that was so old that it was archived, but yet, I hit it, I read the error, and I said, wow, that's the same
Yeah.
error. So, whether they introduce the same problem or something, this is, my company, the administration for the knowledge, product that we're trying to put together, have been really aggressive about trying to thin out all this old stuff.
Yeah.
And a lot of us kind of old timers are looking at it and saying, hey, hold on.
Yeah.
That that doesn't apply necessarily to the current release, but
Yeah.
if you look at the history of how often that's been referenced, you'll realize that the problem of like that does occur, and we're only looking for maybe an idea, a concept of how to solve that problem, and this might be the idea we need. So if you delete it, we might lose that knowledge
Yeah.
and have to redo it again. So it's just kind of looks like
Yeah.
those hamster wheels, like that.
Yeah. I've experienced that. Like, I've written older code, and then I make new code and delete the old code, and the same problem comes back, and I have to revert to the old one, and it's
Go
like a
find it.
hassle. Yeah.
Yep.
So what degree did you chase in college? I'm computer programming, computer science.
So
You went to UF, right?
I did go
So,
to UF.
Yeah. So you said that's
I actually went to UF planning on going into aerospace engineering. And I'll save you the long version of the story, but the short version of the story was aerospace had some classes that you had to take in a specific order.
Yeah.
And if you didn't get those, if the class was only offered in the fall and you didn't get it in the fall, there were 2 other classes behind it you had to take in the spring and then the next fall. And if you missed that class in the fall, then you essentially were delaying your graduation by a year.
Gotcha.
And I had one of those classes, and I had a problem getting the class, and anyway, so I couldn't get the class, and I was kind of frustrated by that because it was really just the system being the system.
Yeah.
There was no reason why I couldn't, go into the
It was
aerospace
just how it
college.
was.
It was
Yeah.
just how it was. It was the fate. But so I had an appointment to discuss that, and the person I was supposed to meet with didn't show up. I was walking away from that appointment, thinking about what I was going to do with my life, and I'm kind of artistic, and I walked past the journalism college,
Ooh.
and said,
Shit.
I think I want to go into advertising. And so
Interesting.
So I got a degree in advertising, and I got out of school, and I realized at that moment, and this would be advice I'd pass along to you, technical degrees, even if you're not working in the field, pay about 10 or 15% more. So
Okay.
you might start out at $25,000 with a non-technical degree. You might have started out at $30,000 if you had a technical
Yeah,
degree.
gotcha.
Just side by side, doing the same work, but the technical degree earns a better starting salary.
Okay.
So I didn't get a technical degree. I got out of school. Advertising positions are really not what I thought they were. And
Yeah.
I mean, if you're a hustler and you want to get into sales and do the Bacardi account and crap, sure, have at it. But and I have friends who did, and they were successful. But it's a lot of work. I wanted to do graphics, graphic work, layout stuff, and those jobs are hourly. Those jobs are basically you get riffed, expelled,
Yeah.
fired, and if they lose the contract. So you might have a job today and go in tomorrow, and they lose the contract.
Yeah, and you're
done.
fired.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're
So
out
it's
the
not
door.
really like job security. It's more like
No,
Okay.
and they really want you to work a lot of hours. It was crazy. It was like, you want me to work how many hours, carry a pager, all these things
Yeah.
for how much money? And it was like, oh, come on.
it's
I
not
was,
worth it. Yeah.
I was making more at my part-time job in college in computers than I
Seriously?
was going to be making per hour full-time in advertising. So I realized that, one of the skills I picked up was writing, and that I'm, actually a decent writer. So I
Yeah.
kind of segued into technical writing, and ended up at my previous employer as a technical writer for a couple of years. And the team that I was on, you had software developers and writers and trainers all working in conjunction.
Right.
So the trainers kind of guided the product, the developers wrote it, and then the writers documented and created the training materials for it. And that was how every team in that company was. It was kind of a forward-thinking thing.
Yeah.
And the problem was that we didn't need a writer as badly as we needed a programmer.
Yeah.
And I quietly took the manuals home for the language we were working in and read
so
them,
you
and
learned them?
came back
Yeah.
and started solving bugs. And one of the developers I was with was like, he's actually doing developer work, and we really need a developer, so make him a developer and hire a writer, because we don't need the writer as much as
Yeah.
we need him as a developer. So, and after
Hey,
that, yeah.
gotta do what you gotta do.
But I've done that a couple of times in my career.
Right.
When I came to Oracle, I came as a support engineer,
Mm-hmm.
and after about a year and a half as a support engineer, I basically got enough notoriety working with developers to fix things
Right.
that the developers were like, "Why aren't you a developer?" And
Yeah,
so they
yeah.
made me a developer again, and now I'm back in support, and I'm kind of looking to see if I can swing that again. But
Yeah.
it just hasn't transitioned yet.
Yeah, gotcha.
I haven't found the right in, but.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, did that answer your question? Yeah. What kind of degree do I have? An advertising degree.
Yeah.
How did I get to software? Well,
Interesting way.
well, we're probably similar in the sense that when I was 12 or 13, we were writing computer games all the time,
Yeah.
and my brother actually sold a game, commercially.
really?
So, I his name was on the box. It was all him, but I was kind of like the guy behind the
Yeah,
guy,
yeah.
writing the code and fixing things and figuring things out. So, I'd done it for my whole life. I just was tired of it when I left high school,
Yeah.
and I found my love for it again
Yeah.
afterwards when I wanted to make more money.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
feel you. So do you guys hire interns? I probably don't think so, because it's super.
I'd have to ask about that. I know that at different times they have done internship programs. When I hired in, they had just completed an internship program, and they had hired several of the people who had done it
Right.
in as full-time people. That was 20 years ago. I haven't seen it recently, but to be honest, I hadn't really looked. I mean, not
Yeah.
in the areas that I've been in have I encountered people, but we do hire a lot of college graduates. That is a much more common thing now. I do see a lot of young, 20-somethings, in the areas now, and I'm like, look at all these young people.
Yeah.
It's so exciting.
Yeah, it's good,
They're
yeah.
getting married and stuff. Yeah, I mean, that was, a whole generation ago for me.
Yeah.
So
So yeah, I was like, cause Lockheed Martin.
yeah,
So they have an internship program for UCF,
Yep.
right? So it's
I know
called
some people
CUF.
who went through it.
Yeah. So I was thinking, because I applied online, right, and I don't know when they go through and decide who it is, and I heard that you have to have like an in on the inside to like slide your resume in.
I know
So
some people over there, but yeah, I mean,
yeah.
it's...
I gotta ask Mr. Ralph. Maybe
he might be able to point you to someone.
Yeah.
He was more in... I won't say he didn't do software. He was more in the hardware test side of things. Another of my friends who works there is a, the whole clear security thing at the airports. Where you get pre-approved for security. So when you go to the airport, you just show a card and they let you through. Yeah, there's like a card system. Yeah, he was part of that. They've rehashed that program, but he was part of the initial deployment, and then they pulled it back and redid some stuff on it. And I don't know if it's still a Lockheed thing. But yeah, they do absolutely have a college program, and they do hire people from that program. Like I said, I think I've got some friends whose kids have done it. So
yeah.
But yeah. Lockheed's a weird place to work, though.
I don't doubt it.
I mean, I had a friend who was doing the F-35. He was on the F-35 program as software. And, the F-35, this is just side note thing.
Yeah. The
F-35 program, they have, essentially what they've done is they've got an Oracle database. They've got a platform, like a VM, a virtual machine, that always stays with that F-35. So if that F-35 transfers from Nellis to West Germany, then they deliver that software to a server that's somewhere in the vicinity of that aircraft, and that tracks all of the maintenance for it and everything else. So there's like this computer on the ground that's keeping up with everything that has to do with that aircraft.
Yeah.
So you have a comprehensive record and all that stuff. And my friend was part of that.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's kind of weird and strange and ridiculous because we have all this, internet-based stuff now. But, I guess the thing is if you're in a war situation, in a battlefield situation, the internet, you just can't predict that the communications are going to stay open. So the idea is that they'll have this local repository and it'll always be in the vicinity of the aircraft, and then there's a backup somewhere else that they sync. And so he was doing a lot of that stuff. But what I was going to say, it's kind of weird, was when I worked at Lockheed, and that was a million years ago, I worked in the training departments doing certification for assembly and different manufacturing processes, and mostly safety programs and stuff.
Yeah.
And that was when I was kind of transitioning, because I was doing like training materials, documentation type stuff, while trying to kind of angle into how can I get into computers and software. So there was some stuff involved there, but I didn't end up staying. They actually offered me a job and I declined it.
Yeah.
But the thing about it is that ultimately that's a company that not only does it make things that kill people, which I'm not saying it, I understand we got to do it, but you got to understand, like right now, I mean, this is the connection in the world is the U.S. is supporting the Saudi Arabians who are bombing the Yemenis, and they've blown up school buses and they've blown up schools, and the Saudis are not very discriminate with what they attack, right?
Yeah, they just go for.
And if you go on the internet and Google this, there are people who all they do is every time the Saudis attack in Yemen and they kill people, they go out and they photograph the debris. And it's American weapons. They're using American bombs and missiles. So you literally will find like debris from a 500-pound laser-guided bomb, stamped with the manufacturing stamps from, Austin, Texas, or wherever it was made. So you can't detach yourself from the idea that what you're doing is in some way helping an autocratic regime bomb people that may or may not mean them ill will, but the Saudis are not being discriminate about it. They're like, I don't care if it's a military value. I just got my bombs on my plane and there's a village and I'm going to bomb it.
Go for it.
So I had trouble with that. After I was at Martin back during the first Gulf War, and I mean, I was young and I didn't really make that connection, but I started to kind of think about that. That the things we were building really were not necessarily going the way I thought the world should go, and it's problematic. Particularly, I mean, the other place that it happens is the Israelis use a lot of our stuff, and there again, I mean, I'm all for Israel defending themselves, but there is a situation where the Israelis have become what they most despise because they're willing to really use a hammer when something a little more selective might be possible. So I get it that they have to defend themselves, but
sometimes they're overextending their.
They just hit too hard, and they act like, who, me?
Yeah.
They were the bad guys. It wasn't me. But if you look at what's happening in the not the West Bank, but in the Gaza Strip,
Yeah.
they basically stifled any development, any manufacturing, anything in the Gaza Strip. So the people in Gaza are basically under siege. They can't get medications. They can't get food. There's a lot of issues with travel and discriminatory policing and stuff. And so when the Palestinians act up, which you absolutely think they would,
Yeah.
the Israelis hit them with literally with jet strikes and stuff. Which if you're making bombs for Lockheed, you're part of the enforcement of that. And like I said, I get it, but essentially the Israelis are slapping the Palestinians and then leaning back, respond,
and then they do it again. Yeah.
Come in hard, and it's like it's
I agree with that. I wouldn't work for Lockheed if they sent bombs at people that bomb things that are kind of.
Yeah, I mean it's all part of that process. The
Yeah.
other side of the Lockheed thing that I have a couple of friends who work there, and I tease them about this. But the other side of it is one of the grossest misuses of our tax money is the fact that we, the military-industrial complex comes up with weapon systems that we don't really need for the current conflicts. They argue that we need them for a potential future conflict, but the cost is just insane.
It's not worth the
there
investment at the
has
moment.
to be a middle ground on it. But the F-35 continues to be a great example of an aircraft that costs over $100 million a plane, and the Air Force is like, we're going to use this for ground support. So we're going to be flying in close to enemy troops who are going to be shooting at us with an airplane that's very sensitive to taking ground fire and no armor. And so we're going to lose these planes in combat at $100 million a piece.
Yeah, and it's
we have aircraft that cost $20 million that are really good at ground
like
support.
Warthogs and stuff.
Yeah, and it's like, well, we don't want any more of those because that's not the new fancy thing.
Yeah,
that
it's not the
costs
old
$100 million.
thing. Yeah.
So I that whole thing, you could fix a lot of our education system problems and a lot of our healthcare problems if you didn't have
to spend all this money on
was budgeting so much money for weapon systems, and even the support of the guys coming back from combat is not what it should be.
Yeah, I
because you're
completely
paying
agree.
for expensive weapons.
Yeah.
So anyway, Lockheed's a great place to get a start. They do hire. They have an internship program. It's just
it's not like kind of morally.
Yeah, there's something there. You have to decide if you can walk through the doors and go, I can
build bombs for people.
I could do
really.
it. I mean, at the time, I was okay with it. The Gulf War and the videos of the Hellfire missiles and the Apache gunships. I was watching that stuff and going, yeah, that's great. But now I kind of look back.
You start learning about it, and
I really, if I had to feed my family, I'd go to work there, but I'm okay.
Yeah.
We're not building bombs, so I'm okay. Right, Noel?
Yeah. But you pretty much answered all the questions.
Yeah, is that it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's weird.